Sports Fantasies with Miller and McCarty.
Welcome back, Sports Fantasies with Miller and McCarty. Going to do a little NFL Rookie Dynasty mock draft. Yes, the kids are very excited tonight.
I really threw you off there with my sound effects.
Yeah, I mean, the sound effects, and you had your Bills emblem on your screen. Couldn't even see you. I didn't know what was going on. Thought we were having technical difficulties, and wham, here we are. The show has started.
Nah, never that. We're ready to roll, baby.
Are we really ready to roll? Who gets pick one? How are we deciding that? You got a coin or something? Flipping a coin?
No, you can take it. It's all you. Well, so
guys.
We're going to go through basically one round, 12 picks of rookie dynasty rookie rankings. Obviously, these, I think the first few will be probably similar after the NFL draft, but of course, a lot of the stuff is going to change after the NFL draft. We'll give an early look at this, early projections.
Yeah, I think that we'll definitely have to come back to this before the season starts, because where players end up could really make a difference. And, depending if a player falls, if they end up with a team that has a starting quarterback or running back, wide receiver, etc. So, with pick number one, I don't think there's really any other way to go here with pick number one than Marvin Harrison Jr. He was a stud at Ohio State, obviously has NFL pedigree with his father. I don't think it matters where he goes. I think he's going to be a 1 or a 2 right off the bat. And I foresee him eclipsing 1,000 yards in his rookie year as long as he's healthy.
Yeah, and we should stress that we're just doing this for regular leagues, not a super flex. We'll probably do a super flex at some point here, but is in a super flex, is Harrison still your one off the board?
I think there's a lot of things that factor into that, where Harrison goes and where the top quarterbacks go, because depending on where the top quarterbacks go, like if Caleb Williams ends up in Chicago, for example, it may ends up in New York with the Giants or New England with the Patriots. I probably am still going Harrison as long as he has. I mean, he's slotted at number 4 in a lot of mock drafts right now to, I believe, the Cardinals with Kyler Murray. I like that pairing quite a bit, so I think I would still lean Harrison in most drafts, depending on your quarterback situation, of course. I mean,
sure.
I have JA in a lot of leagues, so I'm not really looking for a quarterback. Even in the 2 quarterback leagues, I have JA and Mahomes in one of the 2 quarterback leagues. So it really comes down to situation all around, right? Your team situation, what your plans are for this season. But for me personally, knowing my quarterback situations in most of our leagues, I would go Harrison even in the Superflex.
Fair enough. At number 2, then I would go with a guy I don't like quite as much as Harrison. I do agree with Harrison at 1, but this guy I like a ton, right up there with Harrison. Some drafts have him as the 3rd wide receiver. He's my 2nd. It's Odunze out of Washington, 6'3", 215. Last season with 92 catches, over 1,600 yards, 13 touchdowns. His comp is Larry Fitzgerald. Full disclosure, I've not seen a ton of his work other than the Final Four there, where he had a stellar showing as Washington went on their run. But just looking at the highlights, the tapes, and everything, he looks like the real deal. Good size, good route runner, has speed too. I think he'll be a wide receiver 1 before long in the NFL.
Yeah, you like him just a little more than I do. He's actually the 3rd guy on my list, which means that my 2nd guy is still there at number 3, and that's Malik Neighbors at LSU. LSU just produces stud wide receivers over and over again. A lot of people think that Neighbors could be very comparable to Chase, and if he's anywhere near Chase, he could end up being the best player out of this draft. There's actually a couple of sites that list Neighbors ahead of Harrison in rookie mocks. And a lot of that did say depending on where they go. I mean, if Harrison ends up with the Patriots, for example, and then Neighbors goes to a place like Arizona, Neighbors could definitely have a better outlook, especially early on. if it's Matt Jones in New England and Kyler in Arizona. So
Okay.
I don't think you can really go wrong here. And I think you could put these three receivers in any order. Now, I will tell you that if this was a super flex, I would not have went receiver here. I would have went quarterback here.
Sure. Makes sense.
Unless, of course, you went quarterback at 2, and then maybe that changes my mind. But you seem pretty sold on Adunze, so
I am. At 4, then, I hate to go this position this early, but I'm going to go Brock Bowers, tight end out of Georgia. He's projected to be a top 10 pick in the NFL draft since 2000. Only 5 tight ends have gone in the top 10. Just given the state of tight ends in the league right now, if you can get a good young tight end to serve as your tight end for the next decade, think Laporta last year. Of course, Kyle Pitts hasn't come around yet, but we'll see if he gets a quarterback, what he can do. Dalton Kincaid has a ton of upside now. So if you can get you can get a tight end that's almost a sure thing, then I'm okay taking them here. Last 3 years with Georgia, he led them in receptions, yards, and receiving touchdowns. So again, it might take a year or two since he is a tight end, and he's got to. Sometimes it takes him a couple of years to get going and figure out the blocking and everything, but he should be pretty solid right off the bat.
So our top 4, although in a different order, they have matched so far. Well, I mean, assuming Neighbors was in your top 4.
I had Neighbors at 3. Yeah.
Yeah. So our top 4 is matched. It's interesting because normally when we're talking about rookie fantasy drafts, you're talking about running backs and a lot of running backs. And normally, if Brooks didn't get hurt in a game in November and was guaranteed to start the season come next September, I would consider taking him here. But I think because he's hurt and not sure he's going to be starting the season, I'm going to go a little sideways here, even though it's not a super flex. I'm going to go Caleb Williams at 5.
Okay.
I mean, he's been compared to Andrew Luck quite a bit, kind of the can't miss guy. Although USC did have more talent this year than maybe they did in years past, they still didn't have the talent that most top quarterbacks are throwing to. I'm not a huge fan of Williams. I could see him being a bust as easy as I could see him a superstar. But I think in a rookie draft here, in a year when there is no guaranteed running back, we've already talked about 3 receivers being off the board, and most of the other receivers have okay comps, but a lot of them comp out to wide receiver 3. I think you have to take a chance on Williams here as the potential stud quarterback.
Yeah, I'm okay with that, and I think Williams got a little bit of a knock this year because he took quote unquote a step back. But to be fair, he won the Heisman as a sophomore in 2022. It's hard to come back out and live up to the expectation of I mean, he was just supposed to come out and light up the world, and he still had really great numbers. I think it was a little bit unreal expectation for him. I do agree that he's going to be the number 1 pick in the NFL. Elite arm, he can run. So yeah, I'm okay with that there, even in a non super flex. So my, I guess, pick 6, who was actually number 5 on my board, is the guy you talked about just a second ago. Since this is a dynasty, I'm okay going Jonathan Brooks here, Texas running back. Yeah, he won't be ready week 1 in 2024, and it was a torn ACL, I believe, in November, so he could miss most of the season, if not all, if they just decide to sit him out for the whole season at some point. But that's okay by me. I mean, you take him, you stash him if you got an IR spot. He sat behind Bijan 2 years ago, so last year was his first year to shine. He's a 3-down back. I don't think he's Bijan. I don't think he's a sure thing by any means, but I think he is the top running back in the class. He's a good pass catcher, so I'm okay going him first running back off the board at 6.
Yeah, I can't fault you there. The only thing that concerns me a little bit about a running back coming in injured, as neither you or I are huge on running backs into their late 20s. So if you're taking a half or a full season away from a guy who's already going to be 22 years old, now you're looking at his rookie year kind of being 23, 24. that could really limit his ceiling, as well as what if he re-injures that same knee, because we've seen that happen before too. Now, obviously, the knee injuries aren't reoccurring like they once did, but I mean, I think at 6, I think that's a fine pick. For me, at number 7, I'm going to go Tony Franklin, wide receiver from Oregon. He's kind of small. I mean, he's 6'2", weighs 170 pounds. He's accounted for a lot of yards and touchdowns at Oregon the last 2 years, 2,200 yards, 23 touchdowns. I believe he has some high upside. I know a lot of people like Brian Thomas and even Keon Coleman a little more than Franklin, but I personally like Franklin a little bit more than those two and would take him here at 7.
Yeah, stop spoiling my picks. So I would go Brian Thomas Jr. then at number 8. I like him. I had Franklin a little lower on my list, although I do like Franklin. I did have him in my top 12. Brian Thomas Jr., like you said before, LSU wide receiver. He led LSU in touchdown catches last season. Another big frame, 6'4", 200. Should be a first-round pick in the NFL draft. So I'm going Brian Thomas Jr. at 8.
All right. I'm going to come back with a little bit of a surprise here. This guy, in a lot of the research I was doing, sometimes doesn't even go in the first round of the rookie drafts. Other places think that he's going way too late, and that is Adonai Mitchell from Texas. He transferred to Texas from Georgia. He came out and went for about 850 yards and 11 touchdowns last year at Texas. He's built like a potential wide receiver 1 or 2, and he's probably going to go later in round 1 or early round 2 in the actual NFL draft, which means that he could end up in a better situation. You know, I mean, you see like the Bills and Chiefs both needing receivers, and potentially, I think if he links up with a guy like Mahomes or Josh Allen, that could be very beneficial to him, and I think he could produce very, very well in his rookie year.
Okay, yeah, I didn't have him on my radar, but number 10, I'm going to go with a guy that's lower in other people's rankings as well. Maybe a little bit of a homer pick here, but Jalen Wright, running back out of Tennessee. He clocked in a game this year at 23.6 miles per hour, right up there with Tyreek Hill. He averaged 7.4 yards per carry this year. 19 of his 136 carries went for over 15 yards. He's a kind of a compact, smaller frame. He's not gonna be a 3-down back, but I think if he's a guy that he's gonna have to get in the right system. Again, he's not gonna be your guy that's coming in and hammering it on first and second down probably, but if you're in a PPR league and if he gets in the right system, I think he can be an electric player.
Yeah, I can't blame you for going there. He was a guy that was just outside of my top 12, but I can't fault you for doing that. I'm going to come back and go another running back here and go Blake Corum. Corum has been phenomenal at Michigan. He had 25 rushing touchdowns this past year. He had 3,700 rushing yards in his career. Problem with that is he did have 675 carries. He is tough and he's durable, but running back shelf lives are short, like I just talked about, and already coming into the league with almost 700 Division I carries could limit his ability to stay healthy for the long term. But I do like him. I believe that he can be a workhorse back in the NFL, which gives him some potential over other guys because, you know, there's not a lot of those guys left. And I think if he ends up in the right situation, he could run for a lot of yards, and he's already proven he can find the end zone a ton. So I think at 11, I think Corum is a good value pick.
Fair enough. We're going to close it out then, I guess, with our third straight running back at 12. This is actually a guy that's higher than a couple guys that we've taken so far on a lot of lists. Notre Dame running back, I don't know how you say his first name. Audric is what I'm going with. Audric Esteem. This guy is a workhorse back. His comp is David Montgomery. He averaged 19 carries a game this year, 5'11", 230, breaks a lot of tackles. So I'd be okay getting him at 12.
Anybody on your list that we didn't mention?
Yeah, I had a couple. Running back from USC, Marshawn Lloyd. I'm okay with him. 7.1 yards per carry. He split duties a lot of time this year, so you didn't get to see a ton of him, but he was effective when he was in there. And the other guy I had on here was that when you talked about Texas wide receiver, I actually thought you were going to go this guy, Xavier Worthy, out of Texas. As a freshman, he was an All-American. He's been there for a few years now, but my only scary when I looked at his comp, it said Jameson Williams, and I thought, oh no, I don't know if I like the comp. But he's a tiny guy, but he's got a ton of speed.
If he's I did see him. He's slotted to be in the slot by most projections, which is fine. Jameson Williams on the football field, it's fine to be after. You just can't have the off the field issues that Williams has had. The two that I had on my list, the one that I mentioned was Keon Coleman, wide receiver from Florida State. He gets compared to Quentin Johnston quite a bit. And that scares me because we all know how Johnson hasn't performed very well in the NFL. Then the other guy on my list was Drake May. Of course, most people's number 2 quarterback.
Sure.
But because I'd already taken one, I didn't go that route. Some people think that May is going to end up being better than Williams. I could be one of those guys that could end up believing, especially by the time the draft gets here, that May could have more upside than Williams, especially depending on what team they land with. So,
yeah, it's going to make a ton of difference because a lot of these wide receivers outside of like you said, no matter where Harrison goes, he's probably going to be the first one off the board. But from there, I mean, if you have one of these guys we talked about later in the first round ends up going to Buffalo in the first round or Kansas City or somebody that can really put that person to use, and they might jump up as your number 2, 3 wide receiver on the board. So definitely a lot can change. So we'll see what happens.
I'm sure we'll circle back to this, as we get closer to the season, of course. I'm sure we'll probably do, 1 or 2 more of these. But we want to get out there and start getting people thinking about, especially the dynasty NFL season. I mean, our leagues have all opened up at this point. So I think it's a good time to get people thinking and at least get some information out there for people.
All right, we out of here?
Yeah, we'll be back.
All right.
5. Thank you for listening to Sports Fantasies with Miller and McCarty. And be sure to catch future shows wherever you stream.
Bye-bye now.